Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Miller and we are back for chapter 6 of The Missing Manatee. So, Skeeter is our main character, don't forget. When I pulled into Larry's parking lot on my bike, Blink was throwing a ball for Blinky. This was another activity Blink never seemed to tire of. He always had a tennis ball in his pocket, along with our flipping quarter. Remember how he liked to flip the quarter? Heads or tails. And he and Blinky played throw and fetch for hours every day. Hey, Skeet, Blink called. He was already reaching into his pocket, an expression of eager anticipation on his face. Wanna flip? Sure, I answered. I took the quarter from his outreached hand and we began the game. Blinky stood by with the ball in his mouth, wagging his crooked tail patiently. We finished and Blink put the quarter away. I'll save it for another day, Skeet. That's right, Blink. Save it for another day. Well, I guess I'll see if Larry needs any bait. Okay, Skeet. See ya, Skeet. Bye, Blink. I started to walk away, but Blink called. You're going fishing with Dirty Dan. Dirty Dan said you're going fishing with him, Skeet. Yeah, I said. I'm going to try for a tarpon on the fly rod. You're a lucky duck, Skeet, he grinned. I know, I said. Lucky duck, he repeated. Lucky duck. I sure am, I said. Lucky duck. Blink said again. Yup. Blink, saying I was lucky, was starting to make me feel bad. Dan took Blink and, of course, Blinky bait fishing for reds and snapper all the time. But Dan never took Blink fly fishing for tarpon, and I suddenly realized he probably never would. Tarpon fishing was too complicated and difficult. Blink could never learn how to do it. Heck, I wasn't even sure I could learn how to do it. Remember, Blink is Dirty Dan's son. Did Blink wish he was the one going? Or was Lucky Duck one of those phrases he latched onto and liked to repeat? It wasn't easy to figure out what was going on in Blink's head. For instance, he was real smart about some things. He could name every baseball player on every team, and he could remember all of their stats once he heard them. But about a year ago, Dan put him in the bathtub with the water running and didn't think to tell Blink to turn the water off when the tub got full. When the camper began to flood, Dan ran into the bathroom to find Blink sitting happily in the overflowing tub, playing with some plastic ships. I shook my head and went inside the shop to ask Larry if he'd pay me to catch some bait fish for his tanks. He said he reckoned he could sell some live pinfish if I could get them. He gave me a few pieces of fish scraps and I headed out in my skiff. After an hour and a half, I filled the minnow bucket with a couple dozen pinfish and I took them back to the marina quick before any of them died. Ooh. Larry counted them, dumped them in the bait tank, and gave me $3. That brought my total savings up to $37. Ooh, that's a lot of money for Skeet. The radio antenna I wanted cost $44.95, so I was getting close. Remember, he had a broken radio, so he definitely needs that antenna. It was only a little after 3 o'clock, so I decided to go back out, maybe do a little fishing. The tourist boat tended to stay close to the marina area where the restaurants and bars were. So I headed downriver hoping to find a group of snappers I'd have to myself. The water was quiet though, and I didn't see any sign of fish feeding on the surface. I kept going and soon I was close to the place where I'd found the manatee. I didn't know why I was doing it really, but I pulled the skiff up to the island to look around. Some gulls took off, screeching their disapproval of my invasion of their turf. Nothing else moved, except for the river and the clouds, and the mangrove leaves waving in the wind. The marks Earl and I had seen in the mud the day before had been washed away by the tide. There was nothing to show that anything at all unusual had happened there. What did I expect to see anyway? The tattooed guy from Fat Boy's parking lot returning to the scene of the crime? I laughed at the idea. My eye caught on some trash that had gotten stuck in the sawgrass growing near the high tide line. All kinds of stuff ended up in the river, and it tended to get bunched up by the movement of the wind and the tide. There was an empty gallon milk jug, a Dr. Pepper can, a tennis ball, a motor oil bottle, a kid's bright pink flip-flop, a sandwich bag, and a tangle of fishing line. Ooh, that's a lot of stuff stuck. Junk like that was a fairly common sight, and I hadn't paid any attention to it the day before. Now, for some reason, looking at it made me think of what we were doing in art class in school. Mrs. Rathbun had been talking about still life painting. She told us that when we came back from spring break, we were supposed to bring in a collection of objects. It wasn't really homework, which was why I hadn't mentioned it to Mom. In class, we were going to arrange our objects and draw or paint them. I figured this was an interesting assortment of things, so I maneuvered the boat to where I could grab them and put them in the minnow bucket. A lot of stuff was plastic, I realized, but there were plenty of different textures and colors. I was pretty happy with my haul. I even had a title for my picture, Study in Trash by Skeet Waters. On the way home, I stopped at the sheriff's office to check in with Earl. Deputy Wells is out on a call, and the woman at the desk, "May I take a message?" "No," I said. "No message." As I biked home, I told myself the afternoon wasn't a total waste. I'd made $3, and I'd picked up some real artistic garbage. So what's he gonna do with that garbage? Do you remember? Okay, chapter 6 is done, and we're gonna move on to chapter 7.